The last phrase of the book of Judges is, "In those days Israel had no king, and everyone did what was right in their own eyes." That's our background for Ruth. In the days when the judges ruled in Israel, a man from Bethlehem in Judah left the country because of a severe famine. He took his wife and his 2 sons and went to live, just for a short while, in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife was Naomi, and their 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in the land of Judah. They went to Moab and settled in. During their stay in Moab, Elimelech died and left Naomi with her 2 sons. The 2 sons married Moabite women. One married a woman named Orpah, and the other a woman named Ruth. But after about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion died. This left Naomi alone, without her husband or her sons. Then Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had blessed his people in Judah by giving them good crops again. So Naomi and her daughters-in-law got ready to leave Moab to return to her homeland. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she set out from the place where they had been living, and they took the road that would lead them back to Judah. But on the way, Naomi said to her daughters-in-law, "Go back to your mother's homes instead of coming with me. May the Lord reward you for your kindness to your husbands and to me. May the Lord bless you with the security of another marriage." Then she kissed them goodbye, and they all broke down and wept. "No," they said, we want to go with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Why? Why do you want to go on with me? Can I still give birth to other sons who could grow up to be your husbands? No, my daughters, go back to your parents' homes, for I'm too old to marry again. And even if it were possible, even if I had hope, and were to get married tonight and bear sons, then what? Would you wait for them to grow up? Refuse to marry someone else? No, my daughters. It is far more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord himself has caused me to suffer." And again they wept together, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye. But Ruth clung to her. "See," Naomi said to Ruth, "your sister-in-law's gone back to her people, to her gods. You should do the same." But Ruth said, "Don't ask me to leave you and turn back, for I will go wherever you go. I will live where you live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. I will die where you die. I'll be buried there. May the Lord punish me severely if I allow anything but death to separate us." Well, when Naomi saw that Ruth had made up her mind and was determined, she stopped urging her. So the 2 of them continued on their journey. And when they came to Bethlehem, the entire town was stirred by their arrival. "Is it really Naomi?" the women asked. "Don't call me Naomi," she told them. "Call me Mara, for the Almighty has made life very bitter for me. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me home empty. Why should you call me Naomi? When the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has brought such tragedy. So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by her daughter-in-law, Ruth, the young Moabite woman. They arrived in Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. Now, there was a wealthy and influential young man, no, not young man, excuse me, in Bethlehem named Boaz, who was a relative of Naomi's husband, Elimelech. One day, Ruth said to Naomi, "Please, let me go out into the fields and gather leftover grain behind anyone who's kind enough to let me do it." And Naomi said, "All right, my daughter, go ahead." So Ruth went out to glean behind the reapers. And as it happened, she found herself working in a field that belonged to Boaz, the relative of her father-in-law, Elimelech. While she was there, Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. Excuse me. We got to get this down, though. He greeted the harvesters, "The Lord be with you." "The Lord bless you," they replied. Then Boaz went over and he spoke to his foreman. "Who's that girl over there?" he asked. "Whose is she?" And the foreman replied, "That's the young woman from Moab that came back with Naomi. She asked me this morning if she could gather grain behind the reapers, and she's been hard at work ever since, except for a few moments' rest over there in the shelter." So Boaz went over and he spoke to Ruth. "Listen, my daughter," he said. "Stay right here with us when you gather grain. Don't go to any other field. Stay right behind the women working in my field. Watch which part of the field they're harvesting and follow them. I have warned the young men not to bother you. And when you are thirsty, help yourself to the water they've drawn from the well." Well, Ruth fell at his feet and thanked him warmly. "Why are you being so kind to me?" she asked. "I'm only a foreigner." "I know," he said, "but I also know about the love and the kindness you have shown your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. I have heard how you left your father and mother and your own country to come live here among complete strangers. May the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge, reward you fully." "I hope I continue to please you, sir," she said. You have comforted me by speaking so kindly to me, even though I'm not as worthy as one of your servants." At lunchtime, Boaz called out to Ruth, "Come over and help yourself to some of our food," he said. "You may dip your bread in the wine if you like." So Ruth sat with his harvesters, and Boaz gave her food, more than she could eat. After Ruth had gone back to work, Boaz ordered his young men, "Let her gather grain right among the sheaves without stopping her, and pull out some of the heads of barley and drop them on purpose for her. Let her pick them up, and don't give her a hard time." So Ruth gathered barley there all that day. When she beat out the grain that night, it came to about half a bushel. She carried it home and she showed it to her mother-in-law. Ruth also gave Naomi the food that was left over from her lunch. "So much," Naomi exclaimed. "Where did you gather all this grain today? Where did you work? May the Lord bless the one who helped you." So Ruth told Naomi about the man in whose field she had worked. And she said, the man with whom I work today is named Boaz. May the Lord bless him, Naomi exclaimed. That man, no, the Lord has not withdrawn, but he's showing his kindness to us, as well as to your dead husband. That man is one of our relatives, one of our closest relatives. What's more, Ruth said, Boaz even told me to come back. Stay with his harvesters through the whole harvest. This is wonderful, Naomi exclaimed. Do as he said. Stay with his workers through the entire harvest. You'll be safe there, unlike in other fields. So Ruth worked alongside the women in Boaz's fields through the entire barley harvest. Then she worked with them through the wheat harvest too, but all the while, she lived with her mother-in-law. Now one day, Naomi said to Ruth, my daughter, it is time I found a permanent home for you so that you will be provided for. Boaz is a close relative of ours, and he's been very kind by allowing you to work alongside his harvesters. Tonight, he will be winnowing barley at the threshing floor. Now, do as I say. Take a bath. Put on perfume. Dress in your finest clothes. Then go to the threshing floor. But don't let Boaz see you until after he has finished his meal. Be sure to notice where he lies down. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down there. He will tell you what to do. And Ruth replied, all right, I'll do whatever you say. So Ruth went to the threshing floor that night and followed the instructions of her mother-in-law. After Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he lay down beside the heap of grain and went to sleep. Then Ruth came quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. Around midnight, Boaz suddenly woke up and rolled over. He was startled to see a woman lying at his feet. Who are you? He demanded. I am your servant, Ruth, she replied. Spread the hem of your covering over me, for you are my family redeemer. The Lord bless you, my daughter, Boaz said. You are showing more family loyalty now than ever by not running after a younger man, whether rich or poor. Now, don't worry about a thing, my daughter. I will do all that is necessary, for everyone in town knows that you're an honorable woman. But there is one problem. While it is true that I am a close relative, there is another man who's more closely related to you than I. Stay here tonight, and in the morning I'll talk to him. If he is willing to redeem you, then let him marry you. If not, then as surely as the Lord lives, I will marry you. Now lie down here until morning. So Ruth lay at Boaz's feet until the morning. But she got up before it was light enough for people to recognize each other, for Boaz had said, no one must know you were here at the threshing floor. Boaz also told her, bring your cloak and spread it out. And he measured 6 scoops of barley into her cloak and helped her to tie it on her back. Then Ruth returned to the town. When she got back to her mother-in-law, Naomi said, well, my daughter, what happened? And Ruth told Naomi all that Boaz had done for her. And she added, "He gave me these 6 scoops of barley and said, 'You must not return to your mother-in-law empty-handed.'" "Just be patient, my daughter," Naomi said, "until we hear what happens. The man will not rest until he has taken care of this. He will settle the matter today." So Boaz went to the town gate and took a seat there. When the close relative he'd mentioned came by, he called out to him, "Come over here, friend. I'd like to talk to you." And they sat down together. Boaz also called 10 leaders from the town to sit as witnesses. And he said to this close relative, "You know Naomi, who came back from Moab. She's selling the land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. I felt I should speak to you about this so that you may redeem it if you wish. If you want the land, then buy it here in the presence of these witnesses. If not, then let me know right away, because I'm next in line to redeem it after you." And the man replied, "All right, I'll redeem the land." Then Boaz told him, "Of course, your purchase of the land from Naomi also requires that you marry Ruth, the Moabite widow. That way, she can have children to carry on the name of her dead husband and to keep the land in the family." "Then I cannot redeem the land," the man said, "because this might endanger my own estate." "You redeem the land. I can't do it." Now, in those days, it was the custom in Israel for anyone transferring a right of purchase to remove his sandal and hand it to the other party. This publicly validated the transaction. So this close relative drew off his sandal as he said to Boaz, "You buy the land." Then Boaz said to the leaders and all of the people standing around, "You are witnesses that today I have purchased from Naomi all of the land belonging to Elimelech, Mahlon, and Chilion. And with the land I have acquired Ruth, the Moabite widow of Mahlon, to be my wife. This way she can have a son to carry on the family name of her dead husband and to inherit the family property here in his homeland. You are all witnesses today." And all of the people standing around and all of the leaders replied, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make this woman who is now coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, from whom all of the nation of Israel descended. And may you be great in Ephrathah and famous in Bethlehem. And may the Lord give you descendants by this young woman, who will be like those of our ancestor Perez, the son of Tamar and Judah." So Boaz married Ruth, and he brought her home to live with him. And when he slept with her, the Lord enabled her to become pregnant, and she gave birth to a son. Then the women of the town said to Naomi, "Praise the Lord, who has given you a family redeemer today. May he be famous in Israel. And may this child restore your youth and care for you in your old age. For he is the son of your daughter-in-law, who loves you so much, and who has been better to you than 7 sons." Well, Naomi loved the baby. She cared for him as if he were her very own. Then the neighborhood women said, "Now at last, Naomi has a son again." And they named him Obed. He became the father of Jesse and the grandfather of David. Now, this is their family line, beginning with their ancestor Perez. Perez was the father of Hezron. Hezron was the father of Ram. Ram was the father of Amminadab. Amminadab was the father of Nahshon. Nahshon was the father of Salmon. Salmon was the father of Boaz. Boaz was the father of Obed. Obed was the father of Jesse, and Jesse was the father of David, to whom 28 generations later was born Jesus, the Messiah.